So now, Rohit, we're in the final segment of the podcast. I call it Beneath the Accent. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. You can answer them in one word or a sentence, or however you feel like. The idea is just to know a little bit more about you. So the first question is, what advice would you give to your younger self and at what age?
Yeah. So I will say try as many different things as you can before deciding on what your profession will look like or what your option will look like. I will like to give this advice to myself at around between 15 to 18 years.
Okay. And what would you like to say to your 60-year-old self?
I hope by the time I get there, I've made at least difference in somebody's life to be more meaningful.
Tell me about a moment when you experienced a significant cultural difference that surprised you.
Has to be when I went to Pune from Chandigarh. I actually felt the bout of freedom for the first time in life, right? And when I said freedom, it
Mm.
means freedom to make your own financial decisions, freedom to make your own clothing decisions, fooding decision, where you stay, how out you stay out of the hostel. So a lot of freedom, and which I think really helped me shape my future.
Do you have any funny stories related to your misunderstanding around the accent or English?
Yeah. You know what? It's funny that you asked that because when we are growing up in India, right? For us, the word accent usually means people with a Western accent, right? So when I was
Yeah.
growing up, for accent for me meant anybody speaking in a pretty thick, a pretty accent from an North American side of the world. That was accent for me.
Yeah.
When I got my
Yes.
first job, and I was just sitting with a few friend of mine for a lunch, and somebody said, "Rohit, I really like your accent." And I was like, "Do I have an accent?" So that was my first
Okay.
awakening of yes, I do have an accent.
Okay. We all have that accent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, what's your favorite cultural festival or celebration in Canada? And how do you celebrate it?
Ah, I have to default it to Christmas, right? Because I do like the festivities around it, right? And that's also usually the
Mhm.
time when my wife and I give ourselves the guilt pass to skip on our healthy eating
Mhm.
routine to eat into anything and everything that we want. So I would say that
Hmm.
that's pretty interesting.
What's something that you ate for the first time in Canada?
From a Canadian perspective, I was very tempted to try what we call poutine, right? So,
Okay.
yeah, so that's the
And
first.
did you like it?
Uh, yeah, I've had better version of fries, I would say. So yeah,
Okay. If you had to describe yourself as any creature, what would it be and why?
it's a weird one, but I would say a lion.
Okay.
And why? At times I just like to just watch around and act like the king, knowing all, doing all sort of a things, right? So that's
Okay.
that's my way to spoil myself.
Okay. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
My superpower would be if I can just teleport myself to any place. Like, I'm a big fan
Oh,
of
yeah.
exploring different destinations. I absolutely do not like traveling, but I still love going to a lot of different places. So teleporting to the places I like would be nice.
If you could create this one law that everybody has to follow, what would it be?
Probably one thing that really annoys me, don't shout in public places. So, like when you're
Hmm.
in transit,
That should be a
yeah,
law.
when you're in
Hmm.
transit, like
Yes.
when you're transit, people like speaking on phones really, really loudly, that annoys me. So,
Yeah. I experienced that just a few days ago. So, yeah, I can understand. Yeah. So, describe Canada in one word or a sentence.
Canada right now is home away from home. I think I'm very, very lucky. I chose this decision, and this country sort of accepted me. I get to enjoy this country. In a way, I also like it because at times I think the type of outreach that I'm trying to do in terms of reaching out to my community, helping people, I am not sure if I
Mhm.
would be doing the same thing if I was back home. So I'm really grateful
I
to
see.
Canada for helping me ignite that spirit.
If Rohit, you could leave me with one piece of advice, what would it be?
Keep doing what you're doing. I think you have such an amazing message in this podcast on how to overcome barriers and make something so much meaningful that impacts people. This is amazing and so inspiring. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And finally, how would you describe your experience of being on this podcast?
I just love that. I think the element that I love the most is the free flow conversation, right? And as you said, we went pretty unfiltered. I think I
Yeah.
felt really, really at peace sharing what I felt from my
Mm.
heart, and I did not have to think
Oh,
twice
wow.
to either wordsmith what I was seeing. Whatever you
Mhm.
heard was right from the heart through my feelings. So thanks for giving that environment.
Mm. Yeah, no, no, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I'm very, very glad to hear that and very glad to have you. Thank you so much, Rohit, for being on the podcast and adding value to my listeners. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me. I'm truly humbled for the opportunity.